Well, I won't be sleeping again. Happy Halloween, ladies and gentlemen. Even though it is only August 1st, it is time to start the horror movie marathon. And this year we are doing the Friday... What the fuck? I was going to say Friday the 13th. A Nightmare on Elm Street series, and I have the remake right here. So definitely look forward to these 9 movie reviews releasing this month. It is going to be exciting. We're just gonna talk nothing but these movies, and it'll be very interesting. So let's get on with this first movie. In 1984, while the slasher subgenre was heating up, a film was released written and directed by Wes Craven, which changed the game for horror films. This movie was known as A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it shocked and scared viewers at the time. Though I didn't see the movie till decades later, it still holds up as one of the most iconic horror films to ever release, launching the villain Freddy Krueger into the mainstream. A Nightmare on Elm Street follows the story of Nancy Thompson, played by Heather Langenkamp, a seemingly ordinary teenager who starts having weird dreams about a man named Freddy Krueger chasing her in her dreams. He wears a striped sweater and has razor blades for fingers. And as she starts describing her dreams to her friends, they kind of have something in common, as her friends seem to be having similar dreams, but the only thing is that they also seem to be dying off one by one. So one thing you'll note right off the bat about A Nightmare on Elm Street is how highly original this film is. It is such a clever idea for a horror film, and it really does propel this film to a higher standard for slasher fixes, as it was definitely not something you'd see in a horror film. And pre-1984, a slasher was kind of defined as a silent killer who stalked its prey, teenagers, with a knife. And A Nightmare on Elm Street really changed that formula up with its villain Freddy Krueger. He wasn't in the first movie, he wasn't as talkative nor comedic as he would later become in the sequels. It was still something unlike anybody had seen before. Now, as I was saying before, this Nightmare film kind of differs from its sequels, as it is much more darker and goes for a horror approach rather than a horror comedy that the sequels would later emulate. Wes Craven did such an amazing job with atmosphere in this film that if you were ever just to see a clip from this movie, you'd know you'd be watching A Nightmare on Elm Street. Also, so many iconic scenes came out of this film, such as the bathroom scene with Freddy's hand coming out of the water between Nancy's legs, to the face kind of stretching out from the wall, to the second time Tina runs into Freddy in the alley with the elongated arms, and the blood coming from the bed. Those scenes, I know that was kind of vague, as I am a reviewer I tend to do spoiler-free reviews, but there's just so many iconic scenes in this film that I could go on for another half hour. Also, the use of practical effects in this movie were really great. There's this one there's this one stop motion scene where a hanging takes place, and it is just so great. And as I was saying before, the blood coming from the bed, there are 2 scenes in particular that I wonder every time exactly how did they film that. You'd know what I mean if you saw the movie. It is just it's so amazing, people, and that's why I mean that just these things alone and the originality just sets such a high standard for this movie and actually propels it to be a classic. Now, A Nightmare on Elm Street has so many positive things going for it just based off its cleverness that it does suck when this movie suffers from typical horror tropes, such as many scenes at the beginning going nowhere other than their only point is to set up this group of teenagers that I have no attachment to, as I know they'll bite the dust later on. Also, the ending to this film is particularly weak, offering no conclusion to the story we have just seen, and I know this was not the ending we got in this movie was not part of Wes Craven's original idea. He wanted more of a happier ending, like I said, concluding the events that we have just witnessed. And yeah, the ending in this movie was just, its point was just to set up further sequels that we'd see later on, and it was kind of a bummer. I probably would have enjoyed Wes's ending to A Nightmare on Elm Street than the one we got in this cut. Also, many scenes, this is kind of a broad statement, but you'll notice something that filmmakers used in the 80s and 90s as a way to transition scene to scene was the use of a fade to black. And I always found those kind of weird, especially watching those movies that use that transition now, as they kind of end abruptly or they're used awkwardly, and that's what happens in this movie, especially near the beginning. A lot of the scenes, like I was talking about, that go nowhere use the transition of fade to black, and it kind of ends on an awkward note. I mean, it's the point of that scene is just like, oh yeah, let's like kind of half-ass set up this character that that you and I both don't like, that I know you don't care about, and then we'll end the scene very awkwardly with this fade to black, and it's just kind of frustrating to see. But like I said, that only happens at the beginning. The movie starts to run a bit smoothly after like the first 20 minutes. So yeah. Now, the good do outweigh the bad. It just has to be noted that there are some problems with this horror film, but it is just an all-around great film. I mean, from the iconic scenes to the score to Freddy Krueger himself, this is just a smart and great horror film that deserves to be at the standard or where it is now as one of the most iconic horror films to ever release. I know I've stated that so many times, but it is true. And for that reason, A Nightmare on Elm Street gets an 8.5 out of 10. Alright guys, this has been your favorite critic 26 with yet another review, and if you've enjoyed this video, please smack that like button as always, share it to your friends, and subscribe for future videos. You'll know where to find me. This is the first review this month. Well, this is the first horror film review this month, so get ready for 8 more as like I stated at the top of the video, we are taking a look at the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So yeah, stick around for that. I'll see you guys in a couple days with the review for Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Peace.